Call this meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have an agenda before us. This is modified from the packet. I think 8A has been added. Is that all the change?
8A, which is an update on the project report.
An update on the CIP project, all right. Any other changes? Nothing to add? We have a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion made to approve the agenda. We have a second.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? All in favor? Call the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Minutes of the May 2nd regular meeting. In the packet, any corrections, comments? We have a motion to approve the minutes then.
I'll make the motion.
Motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Your turn.
I'll second it then.
You'll have to second.
Any other discussion? Call the question then. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'll
Opposed?
abstain.
What?
I'll abstain, I wasn't here.
One abstention and
I'll abstain as well.
another abstention. Motion carries 2 in favor, none against, 2 abstentions.
You'll have to rewrite them, Nikki.
Get the abstentions right, huh? Public open forum. Is there anybody here who wishes to address the council regarding things that are not going to be discussed later in the agenda? Or are, for that matter, but not being presented? Second time, anybody? Third? Close the public forum, then move on. We have no public hearings, reports and presentations. 6A, community garden presentation.
Okay, first I'll give you a little background on this based on the park board meeting, and then representatives of this committee are here in the audience to answer any questions that you may have. The representatives from that community garden project, this is a subcommittee of the Sauk Center Area Foundation. They would like to provide you some information that they also provided to the park board regarding the use of the old outdoor hockey rink for a community garden project. Multiple areas were identified as potential locations, however, this was selected as the preferred location. Other areas included the John Weiss Ford Field area, Hickman Park, the vacant lot on Birch Street, J.C. Park outfield, and the city property by the Cates Estates. They were all evaluated, and then this was the preferred selection. A couple of the details, and you were provided ahead of time copies of the presentation that they gave to the park board. So, and then also a map. So some of this is redundant of that information. The request is the use of the old rink. This is the one where the boards were taken down. We still intend to have outdoor ice in the other rink, so some people were confused about that. This committee, they will be forming bylaws and rules and regulations. They will be using a fiscal agent that is a 501c3 for accepting donations and purchasing supplies. They plan 2018 to be a pilot year for this project. The garden is to be a combination of raised and in-ground beds, including accessible beds and a children's plot. Irrigation is proposed from the river with a donated pump, and that hasn't been finalized yet, but the club would be responsible for the pump and electricity. And then they do have some donations that have been already pledged for other things such as soil. They will have master gardeners on board to assist as well as conduct classes, and they will have weekly responsibility assignments to make sure that it goes smoothly. The request of the city was asked to use permission of the area along with some assistance for initial prep of the site, such as removing the clay layer that's there underneath the old rink, and then some initial spreading of new soil or maybe placing of some of the garden beds, etc. So with that, if you have any questions, the group is here, or if you have any questions of me first, otherwise I'll have them come up and answer any questions you have specific to that proposal. And then your action for this tonight is under agenda item 7B.
Any questions?
I know when we brought this up at the park board, it was pretty unanimous.
Okay.
Because
The park
then
board.
I don't know if you want to know how many are here? 3 of you? 3 of the committee are here right now that are ready and willing to answer any questions you might have.
I just have one question because I attended that workshop last Thursday, and then there was discussion regarding the fiscal agent and whether or not Centricare was able to act as that responsible party. Were you able?
Yep, we Okay.
So they created a community garden fund for us to funnel our gifts.
I'll ask somebody to come to the mic for the answers, because otherwise nobody's going to hear it but us.
So we were able to secure Century Health Foundation as being the 501c3 agent for the community garden project. We were also able to secure $3,000 of funds from the community foundation to start our pilot project this year.
My familiarity with community gardens, they usually have a plot rented out, and oftentimes they're fenced and separated. This doesn't seem like the kind of thing you have set up here. It seems almost like shared beds.
Yeah, so this year is going to be a pilot project to see what works best.
Okay.
We want to make half of the garden accessible to anybody as a true community, and then the other half is going to be renting plots. So with that, we'll make some raised beds that'll be accessible for anybody who would want to rent a plot. Other communities have done it in a similar fashion, where half of that is, rent and then you take care of it yourself, and then the other half is that true community. So we'll have different partners on board to take care of that community bed.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a presentation then, Friends of the Little Red Schoolhouse.
And the second presentation is from the Little Red Schoolhouse relocation, and they also were in front of the park board. And they are here, but I'm going to let them go ahead because they have a PowerPoint presentation that they want to share with you. And that'll be something that you will have action item under 7D actually on the agenda. And I did give you a couple bullet points and also a map of the area that they are considering. And they are looking to relocate the Little Red Schoolhouse to the front of Sinclair Lewis Park, like on the Highway 71 side. They intend to raise funds necessary to provide for the moving, and the intent is to have the building used more and some other available uses that they might have for it. But I'll let them go ahead and give the PowerPoint at this time. And then if you have any questions, you can ask them either during the presentation or once you're done. I don't know who's going to make it. Are you, Sarah?
Good evening. We are a group of residents that came together after a roundtable meeting organized and facilitated by the Sauk Center Area Community Foundation. All of us are really interested in the historical value of our community, and along with the murals and the artistic value that's being added throughout the time here. So this slideshow here, PowerPoint, just talks a little bit about how Sauk Center is a wonderful city of parks with many places for children to grow up and play. There are many iconic buildings and a unique culture that distinguishes Sauk Center from other small towns in Minnesota and the rest of the county. The Little Red Schoolhouse has long been a rich part of our community and its heritage. It was relocated in 1972 and has been highly visible and welcoming to those visiting Sauk Center. The desired location of positioning the Little Red Schoolhouse in a permanent home is in Sinclair Lewis Park. It will continue to give the historical building high profile and continued visibility. Parks are all about children, just like the Little Red Schoolhouse, so Sinclair Lewis Park is an ideal location. Its historical registry, like many of the other older buildings in Sauk Center, helps give the community a unique and distinct identity. The Little Red Schoolhouse continues to connect Sauk Center with its historical roots as the community and its culture continues to progress and evolve. Sauk Center has had a long-standing tradition of providing quality and education that began with many students in old days from one-room schoolhouse in area townships to the Sauk Center High School. Relocation of the Little Red Schoolhouse is inevitable when that piece of property is sold. So steps taken now will allow for a well-planned and methodical transition for this community treasure. It is our desire to relocate the Little Red Schoolhouse before the building needs to be relocated on short notice. This will help prevent the city from having to work under a tight time frame for a new home and move the building without having sufficient time and adequately plan for the necessary infrastructure requirements that will be needed to ensure its ongoing viability. There is private funding available to us now for the relocation of the Little Red Schoolhouse. We feel it's the perfect time to take action for this plan. The funding, we don't know will cover all of the moving costs or all of the costs to have it relocated, but it is quite substantial. We have talked with some residents here in Sauk Center that are willing to help provide some of the material and the labor at a discounted cost. We feel we've been out and we've measured for this particular placement of the schoolhouse, and as far as we can tell, it would meet all of the required setbacks. Ideally, we are striving to have the Little Red Schoolhouse relocated in time for a grand opening during the 2018 Sinclair Lewis Days, which will be held July 18th through the 21st. This will allow us to have some special events in coordination with the grand opening and during Sinclair Lewis Days. And then we have come up with a list of potential uses for the Little Red Schoolhouse events, which are really limited only by our imagination. And we are really looking forward to having it open for more than just a few days out of the year. Members of the Friends of the Little Red Schoolhouse, which we're calling ourselves right now, are committed to doing the work needed after the move to help freshen it up as necessary by painting, cleaning, restaging, etc. And again, just to reiterate, what we feel is a rich part of our history and continuing to connect the greater community with Sauk Center's past and future. We really appreciate your time considering this proposal. We welcome any questions that you might have of us.
Questions?
Not all at once.
Yeah, well, I know, I will say, it's interesting that you talk about so that we can avoid being under a tight constraint to move it, and then you put us on probably the tightest constraint we would ever look at.
Touche. We do understand when this conversation came up, again, it was a result of a roundtable, and we just started looking at how we can work with the city to accomplish some of the things that we'd like to see done. And the schoolhouse was one of the first things that kind of came to our mind, knowing that the land is for sale and we would really like to see it preserved. So that was first on our list. There are many things, so I might be back here, who knows. We do understand that that is a pretty quick, tight time frame to work under. That's not a make it or break it time frame. We just really want to have support from the city, knowing that there is a plan, or we're working together towards a plan to have it relocated to a permanent place.
Okay. You also talk about a lot of potential uses for the schoolhouse. They could happen now, though. I mean, it's not like it has to be in Sinclair Lewis for any of those things.
Absolutely, correct, yep.
Anything else?
I see the visual of that front area of Sinclair Lewis Park. The exact location, what is I mean, to meet setbacks, we'd have to be about 30 feet from the sidewalk, correct?
From the property line.
From the property
Sidewalk is not
line.
necessarily the
Okay,
property line.
so boulevard, yes, okay.
And I know there was, sorry to cut you off.
No,
Maggie.
it's okay.
I know there was some concern as we've shared kind of what our vision is for relocating the schoolhouse. And I know there was some concerns about blocking the fountain, blocking the mural, how it would actually sit up front. And we have been out there, and we would welcome a field trip with the city council to go out and to walk around and to really see. There is a row of pine trees that we envision the schoolhouse kind of butting up to, where the pine trees are already kind of blocking any view of the fountain or the mural at that point. So we have found that by going out there that would be an ideal spot for it, just because unless we are mistaken by any setbacks or measurements.
Why would it be an ideal spot?
Well, we'd like to continue to see it in a place of prominence, where it sits on 71 and 94 as people come into town. Right now, it's a visual landmark. We feel that this place in Sinclair Lewis Park would also be a landmark, visible as people come in from the north side of town. So again, just kind of finding a similar spot. Also, there aren't many people, there's not a lot of utilization of that front part of the park, whereas down in the park where the band shell is and the playground and the picnic tables, the picnic shelter, we just felt that this would be a place that it could sit without taking away space from those other activities.
Any other questions?
It's just hard to visualize. I mean, it sits kind of low where it's at, so it doesn't seem that big of a building. And as the elevation of the front part of Sinclair Lewis goes up towards the gazebo, my fear is that it's just, boom, there's the little red schoolhouse, and that's taking away from the view as you're driving. As you're driving past Main Street or driving past the park, you see the lake, you see the docks, you see the mural, you see everything. I don't mind the idea. I think it's just hard to picture how tall is that building.
And we have, our group has worked to try to gather some information before coming before you. So we've had the building measured, we've reached out to some structural movers, we've been to that part of the park and measured it out. And again, I think it's easy to, have a hard time visualizing it just because it does seem like a big building, and we would welcome going out there.
Yeah.
There has been talk of other places to relocate it, and certainly we're not against that. We just want to see it preserved. So if somebody has a different idea, a better fit for it, we certainly would, welcome working with the city on that as well. But I think we would just like to see some action taken and a plan put in place.
Okay. Anything else? No? We'll move on then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Police Department monthly report.
Sergeant Jensen was going to be here to give the report, but he's delayed, so if we could just wait on that one until he gets here,
We'll
or
get it.
else we'll receive it at the next meeting.
All right. Moving along then, we have a planning commission report.
Okay, the Planning Commission met in regular session last night, actually, and we provided you with an agenda that they had. Their main item was they had a public hearing to consider the variance request for the Sauk Center Public Utilities. It was a lot line setback relative to the electric warehouse, and that is an action item later on the agenda, so I'll give you some more information at that time. They also received the April 2018 monthly building report, which had a total construction value of $893,860. So the total, as of this year, as of April of 2017, we've had a total construction value of $3.6 million. So, or last year it was to compare. So 893 this year, 3.6 last year, but last year was the apartment building, which was 3.1 of that. So if you take that one out of the equation, we're actually ahead of last year at this time for building permits. A comprehensive plan update. That'll be in front of the Planning Commission at the June meeting, and then as well as the council looking for final adoption at that time. And other than that, they just had a few informational items about some watershed rules and workshops, et cetera. So you will have one action item, which will be the variance request later on in the agenda.
Questions? Airport board report.
The airport board met on Wednesday, May 9th, in regular session. They had a few things on their agenda. They reviewed the final punch list for the 2017 runway reconstruction project. They have one of the storm ponds that wasn't functioning properly, so they have to do some corrections there. And then after that's done, they will have the 99s, which is the first women's flying club in Minnesota, will be painting the compass rose, which is the compass that they put out on the apron, so that airmen can calibrate their aircraft. So every airport has a different compass rose, and so we have an aerial picture of ours before they tore it off, and we'll get the same one put back. They also looked at the timeline for the 2018 road entrance paving project, and the grant will be written on the end of July, so we expect that paving project to happen sometime in August. And they are recommending the transfer of some entitlement dollars owed to the city. The city of Owatonna owes us $62,000. It's expiring federal money. We don't want it yet, so we're going to let Hutchinson use it and get repaid in 2021. That will be an action item later. They are moving forward with the grant application for the airport zoning update. MnDOT did just call me Friday and say that they will be releasing the funds to the city. So that is a 75% grant to update the airport zoning ordinance, which is that committee involves the county, the city, and the township. So somebody here will be asked to volunteer to serve on that committee. And then we also had some options for the ongoing fuel pump failures that we've had, something to do with the design of that pump, but our engineers think they're getting to the bottom of it. So that is it on the airport board.
Questions? Thank you. That brings us to our action items. Action item 7A, resolution approving grant variance.
Okay, this is the planning commission that I discussed. They acted as the Board of Adjustment, and they conducted a public hearing to hear the proposal of the public utility for a deviation from the setback from First Street South to allow for the construction of a warehouse to be used by the electric department. The request is to allow a setback of 14.4 feet where 30 feet is required along First Street North. The Planning Commission recommends that the variance be granted, citing that the structure cannot be located further from the property line due to the existence of an overhead electric line and sanitary sewer located on the property, and the building cannot be downsized due to the size and nature of the supplies and material to be warehoused in the facility, including large transformers, and the size is kind of dictated by being able to get in there with large equipment to move that stuff around. The commission felt that allowing the variance would not change the character of the area, as large warehouse-type facilities already exist, and this one would be placed in line with those. In addition, this would allow for the demolition and removal of the old warehouse and the elimination of the outside storage at that facility that's located just southeast of this proposed building. So for those reasons, the Planning Commission is requesting that the City Council grant the variance, Resolution 2018-43. And I also provided you that variance, giving you the language of the difficulty which I just outlined. And some of the conditions were that the minimum impervious coverage requirements will be maintained. I will have provisions made to prohibit stormwater runoff. The outside storage will be for the large transformers, and that the color scheme for the building will match as close as practical to the existing adjacent warehouse facilities. And so those were the conditions. So we're looking to pass Resolution 2018-43, approving the request for the variance.
Questions? Motion then.
I'll make a motion that we approve it.
Motion to approve the variance. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other discussion or comments? Call the question then. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Authorizing the use of the old outdoor rink for the community gardens.
Okay, this is subsequent to what you heard earlier about the Garden Club Committee. The City Council should determine if the proposed use of the old outdoor rink property at the Conservation/Lions Park would be a good fit for this use. The Park Board voted unanimously to recommend the use of that rink. If the council determines this is an appropriate use, it should take formal action to authorize. They will have continued updates, including bylaws, layouts, and schedules, and opportunities to participate will be provided at ongoing meetings. The city's comp plan and master park plan state that property in the floodplain, if developed, should not include permanent structures, but may include obstacle-free improvements such as fencing, picnic areas, and other improvements that would be impervious to flood damage. That the city should work to promote opportunities for healthy living. That the city should provide opportunities for social engagement of its residents, and the city should provide recreational opportunities for those at all stages of life. And these are excerpts from the comp plan and the master park plan relative to this project. So the action that is requested of you tonight by the Community Garden Group is to approve the use of the old outdoor rink for the community garden project.
Questions? Comments? My understanding is that at this point, the city's obligations are limited to preparing the site and providing the site for usage.
That
It's
is
really it.
correct.
Otherwise, long-term, any upkeep, maintenance is all expected to be handled by the gardeners.
That is correct.
We have a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded, Judy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstention, being pinged.
Ping.
Authorize the use of street department property for a dog park.
This is another project that's been kind of ongoing for about a year now, and this is trying to find a location that may be suitable for a dog park. Carol Griffith has been working with the Park Department to identify such an area. The Park Board at its meeting on May 1st considered the property across First Street South from the Public Works facility as a potential location and unanimously voted that the area is appropriate use for that property and that further planning is authorized. I did include a copy of the map, the overhead for you. The board previously considered and ultimately rejected the use of Hickman Park, the area surrounding the hockey rink by the new city well, the old landfill owned by the MPCA, and the area at the east end of the campground. So these were all different areas that they had looked at. If approved, plans will be made laying out the details, including the size and the layout, the type of materials, budget, and fundraising, and will come back for final approval. At the present time, there's no request for funding by the city. However, some staff's time may be needed, and the city does have some chain link fencing that may be repurposed for this use. When I say staff time may be needed, we want to make sure the lines are straight and that type of thing, that this Public Works would be involved. In the interim, the old outdoor hockey rink is available for use by dog owners as an off-leash area until a new area can be completed. That rink is gated and has dog litter bags and for disposal, as also water dishes are out there. So we're not taking that away at this time. We're trying to create a better place with grass and that type of thing. Excerpts from the comp plan and the master park plan state that the city should work to provide a variety of recreational opportunities. The city should maintain dog control ordinances that prevent dogs from running at large. The city should provide for social engagement of its residents, and also this property is also in the floodplain, so it has the same property in the floodplain, should not include permanent structures, but may include obstacle-free improvements. So kind of the same thing there. But what we're looking for to do today is not final approval of use of that, but just enough approval that they feel that they would authorize further development of the plans for the off-leash dog area on the property. And then they'll come back with a more formal plan and some cost estimates, and at that time, the fundraising proposal.
Are you looking for a motion or is consent
I
of the
just would like,
council?
do you just want general consent that we're going in the right direction before they put a lot more time and effort into it, and then you come back and just cross it off the list, so.
General consent then, that's a fine place for a dog park?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Council grants its consent.
Thank you.
Relocation of the schoolhouse.
Okay, this action is subsequent to the presentation by the committee advocating for the relocation of the Little Red Schoolhouse to the front of Sinclair Lewis Park. As you know, the city in the past has discussed 8 previous ideas for location of the Red Schoolhouse. Of those 8 ideas, 4 were eliminated and 4 remain on the table along with this new, which would be the 9th proposal. It is an intent of the city to select a location and put a plan in place. So when they were referring to wanting to save that, that's kind of been what the city has been doing over the last couple of years as we review different locations. The council, you should look at what type of use the schoolhouse should be utilized for in the future as it relates to this proposal and what the use of Sinclair Lewis Front Park should be. So you've got the front park to look at, you've also got the schoolhouse to look at. Excerpts from the comp plan say that the city should advocate for the preservation of its historical features, and also it does say Sinclair Lewis Park should be utilized as active play for the middle park and passive open space in the front park. And the park board recommended the proposal in a non-unanimous vote at their meeting, May, whatever that date was, May 1st, I think it was. And so now tonight, I think we're looking to consider relocation option, and whether you feel like you're ready to make a decision on that, or as you said earlier, you know, if it's too tight of a time, that you do have the option to table that. So you have 2 different things to consider.
Questions at all?
I guess I wouldn't mind tabling it for the reason maybe to look at other areas where it could possibly be put and to see what kind of impact it would have on the view of the lake and the band shell.
Yep.
I agree with Keith.
Okay.
I don't know. The height issue that Heidi brought up, that's a good point, you know. Down in the valley, you don't really see it. It fits in there so doggone nice, but.
And not to say that it won't at the park, I think it's just one of those things that's always been this steadfast little spot, you know, you can't picture anything different, and you don't realize the size of the building until you relocate it and then go, whoa, that's a pretty big building. Not to say it's a bad spot.
No.
I think where I'm torn on this, and where I'm in agreement is because they have funds already available where we as the city don't have to rely on providing the funds, passing it on to the taxpayer, that, you know, they've already done the work,
Yeah.
which has saved us a lot of legwork. I think where I'm torn is being, I guess, pushed to a specific spot. So I agree with you on that, Keith, that it'd be nice to visualize different options. But whether or not that means whatever funding they've been able to raise goes away,
Goes away, yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, well,
And I just feel it's such a tight time constraint. We don't have a buyer for that property, do we? We don't have anybody interested in it at the present time?
We don't have a written offer at this time.
Then there's no hurry. I mean, to move it right away.
Well, the hurry, I think, was proposed by the committee, based on a specific student to that building. Who
specific
is
what?
a student, a living student.
Oh.
She's 102 years old. And that was, you know, brought to our focus by that specific committee. I don't know.
okay, well, I mean, that's interesting, but there are lots of students. This isn't the last student.
No,
And I know there's a lot of talk about the history, but I think it's important to note it is not Sauk Center's history, other than the fact that it came here about 50 years ago or 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So I think tabling is appropriate. I think the
Yes.
city has talked about moving it, and I think the city has always been committed to preserving the schoolhouse, moving it someplace. We have several options that we've been looking at. I also understand that the funding is not contingent on it moving to that spot, and as they said, not contingent on moving it by that date. So we have options. It's been suggested that we might table it. I will entertain a motion, whatever the feelings are.
I'll make a motion that we table it at this time.
A motion to table?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Some discussion. How did you want to resolve this tabling? Should we send it to committee to look at?
Yes, I think it should go to committee.
Okay. You have a suggestion on a committee?
Operations.
Operations? Okay. Seems a reasonable one, unless you have a different thought.
I have lots
I
of
think
thoughts
it
right
really,
now.
it really comes down to us deciding, well, where are we going to put it and when? And keeping our options. All right. Well,
Is operations the proper committee?
I'm trying to think, what else would we send it to? I mean, financial? No, it's not personnel.
I mean, originally, it would be park board, since this involves the park board, but that's not a committee. They've already non-unanimously voted, so.
Yeah. So at this point, it's on our laps anyway, so.
I mean, I'm fine with that.
Yep.
Unless you want to form an ad hoc committee to look at it. We are under no obligations to use the committee that stands. You want to put together a Little Red Schoolhouse? Anybody wants to be on it?
Are we able to do that?
Oh, yeah.
Certainly, we can form a committee if we want. We can form any committees on a short term for a specific use. But let me go back to the motion. We have a motion to table. We can continue the discussion, but let's take care of that. So we have a motion to table. Call the question, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstention? Motion will be, the action will be tabled until a future time. Back to committees. Should we form a committee, or should we let it go to operations?
I would let it go to operations first.
I agree.
Two for who is the operations committee that is? It hasn't met much. I think it might be
Keith and
me.
Dave, maybe?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I believe so.
All right.
Yeah, you're it.
No wonder you're in favor of this.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. We'll send it to operations committee. Do you want to put any kind of a deadline on it?
I
should be able to go
I
at
think the
least-
sooner the better. I mean, these people want
Yeah,
conclusion
I mean,
too, so-
they're in a hurry for things.
Yeah.
2 weeks sufficient, or
I
are we going to
think
need a
so.
month to look at things? Next meeting or the meeting after is
I
what it
would
comes
say
down
next
to.
meeting. We can
All right.
have something by that, couldn't we, Vicki?
Sure.
Okay. That wasn't a real convincing sure.
No, I'm sorry. Yes, we'll have something.
Whatever you say, Keith, she'll get it done.
Yeah, I
Yep,
know
yep,
she will.
yep.
I know.
All right, get my computer back up again here. We have a resolution accepting bid for an ambulance.
Okay, in 2000, on April 18th, 2018, the City Council passed a resolution authorizing solicitation of bids for the purchase of a new ambulance. Proposals were received from 2 vendors, both through the government discount process. Bids were for gas rigs only, as diesel is no longer available for the ambulance RV cutaway model. As you recall, Ford went away from diesel, but the cutaway a couple years ago, now Chevy has done the same. So we have a Chevy has been bid by PSV and Lifeline, and the Ford from PSV. And the PSV Chevy was $144,668. This was after trade. The Lifeline was $153,459 after trade, and then the PSV Ford was $143,533 after trade. So we were pretty close on the PSV models, the Ford versus Chevy, and the Lifeline was a little bit more. We do have a representative from the ambulance department if you have any questions. And then, of course, we also include in the budget $2,500 to transfer radio and put the stickers on it and the logos and everything like that. So the department is recommending that the city purchase the Ford E450 from PSV. The total cost is $158,533 minus the trade of $15,000. That gets you to the $143,543 I stated. And if you add the $2,500 in for striping and radio, we have an all-in cost of $146,033. The prior ambulance was purchased in 2012 for $146,163. So very close. So what we're looking tonight is to approve Resolution 2018-44 authorizing the purchase of the ambulance, and that resolution is in your packet as well. Do you have
Questions?
any questions for Kathy?
Is she right here for that?
Is this one any bigger than the others?
No, it's all same size.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Pretty
just-
close in price from 2012. That's not bad. That's really good.
Well, that was a diesel,
Yeah,
That was a diesel.
but still, I mean,
Yeah.
and this is
6 years
gas.
later and it's almost the same price. It's good buy.
All right.
Is there any?
ahead.
Yeah, we're not trading in any of ours.
Yeah, we're trading in the 2009.
15,000 trade-in
15,000
loans.
trade-in.
Oh, yeah, duh, sorry. I would guess I was right when I heard that.
There also, if you wanted us to, looking for.
She's offering to keep that for you, Keith.
Yeah.
There will come a time when you keep it. I know there will.
Yeah,
Any other questions? Comments?
that's right there, 15,000 trade-in.
Motion then. We have a
I will
motion.
make a motion, we authorize the purchase of the
PSV.
PSV
Yeah.
vehicle.
The Ford one.
Ford
Yeah.
E450.
Yep.
We have a motion to purchase the Ford from PSV. We have a second.
I'll second.
We have a second. Any other discussion? Call the question, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Resolution 2018-45, accepting quotes for miscellaneous paving projects.
At the April 4th, 2018 City Council meeting, you approved Resolution 2018-27, authorizing solicitation of bids for grading and paving at the Street Department yard and the campground extension and loop. Bids were opened yesterday, May 15th. We had 3 bidders presenting bids for the project. Mark Lee Excavating at $54,959.60, Riley Brothers for $55,332, Central Specialties for $58,146. Staff estimate for the project was $57,908. We are proposing to pay the project through available funds in the 2018 Street Maintenance Fund and the Campground Fund. The campground share of the project is $13,929, which the Park Board has recommended to proceed, and the street share of the project is $41,019. And so that would come out of that $110,000 mill and overlay and street maintenance budget in the regular operating fund. Previously, we had approved seal coating of about $82,000, and we're proposing that come out of the small cities' street maintenance dollars, because you only have a certain amount of time to pay that. We receive those dollars in 15 and 17, so we need to get that spent. So take the seal coating out of that, take this money out of the street maintenance fund, and then the balance of that fund we're proposing to hold over till next year, so we can add it to next year's dollars to do a little bit bigger mill and overlay project. We're finding that when we take those dollars, we can get like 3/4 of a street done, and then we have to break it into 2 years. So we would just like to save the money, do a little bit bigger next year, do one street, which is maybe about 4 blocks worth at that point. So what we're looking to do tonight is to approve Resolution 2018-45, accepting the bids for the paving projects. The motion to maybe save that money over next year, we'll wait till the end of the year when we put things in the sinking fund to see how the budget shakes out. So for now, we're just looking to approve this bid for paving.
Questions? Comments? Then I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion
Would that be
to
for or against?
to accept Mark Lee as the,
We have a motion to accept the quote. We have a second.
I'll second.
And a second. Any other discussion? Call the question then. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 7G, appointment of seasonal street park employee.
With the mowing season just starting, Matt Zeniel, the Public Works Supervisor, is requesting that the city authorize the return of one of the prior year's seasonal student employees. Grant Stress is a selected employee to return. We actually had 2 seasonal employees last year, in addition to Dennis Christensen, who returns every year. We're just looking to bring one of them back, and he would return to the city at seasonal step 2. So what we're looking to is to approve the appointment of Grant Stress at step 2.
Questions? Comments? I believe we expected to hire seasonal help, so this is not any surprise.
This is
at all.
nothing new.
We always hope to get the people who are already trained to come back, so. We have a motion then.
I'll make a motion, we approve the appointment of Grant Struss to a seasonal step 2.
We have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other comments or discussion? Call the question then. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Supplemental lease agreements for Verizon.
The city had previously approved a master agreement with Verizon for the location of small cell wireless antennas on city streetlight poles. We have 5 proposals for locations now that have been presented for approval. I did include the first schematic in there is kind of like a sideways and a look at what the pole would look like, and then followed by each of the locations. And the 5 locations are at the northeast corner of Main and 9.5, on the west side of Main by Snap Fitness, the northwest corner of Ash and the Walmart parking lot, so that's south of the lights on the west side, on the northeast corner of 6th Street and Main, and west of Main between the truck stop entrances. So these are the 5 locations that Verizon has selected. They have met out there with staff, and they've looked at the sites, and staff has had the opportunity to make recommendations. Locations 1 and 2 and 4 and 5 are co-located on light poles. Location 3 is proposed to be a new pole with no light unless the city council determines that a light should be located on that pole. The operations committee did express a concern over why the city would want to own a pole at location 3 if there wasn't a light on it. And Verizon's reasoning for that is that so there would be Verizon signal inside the businesses in the areas, including Walmart, the bank. I think they have their own, Coburn's, those different facilities that don't have good wireless signal, so they're trying to get something in that area. According to the master lease agreement, Verizon would provide and install the new light poles and then turn them over to the city. So they're about $6,000 a pole, so they will be replacing our poles for us. And then the city would receive $250 per year per location as a lease payment, along with the electric utility fees that would go to the Sauk Center Public Utility. So what we're looking for tonight is to discuss and approve supplemental lease agreements for locations 1 through 5 with Verizon Wireless.
Questions? We discussed this at operations. $250 per year per location was the lease agreement. Is that negotiated, or was that the set price?
That was what we approved in the master lease agreement. The legislature got involved in how much you can charge.
Well, I realize, but
Yeah.
that didn't apply to us, so.
It didn't. They had $175, so then I think we came back and the council approved the $250.
Okay.
So
Well, that's-
somewhat over the other ones,
I know our
but not too
concern
much.
was that we have a pole that we don't have any use
Right.
for, and it's our responsibility. So we're getting $1,250 per year for a $6,000 pole that we might have to do something about at some point, so something to
Um,
consider.
Yeah. Is there a height on that particular pole? I suppose it's
On which one? The one by
the
Walmart?
one, yeah.
That would be location 3, and location 3 is on page 43 of your packet.
Yeah. Oh, 43.
Well, I don't have the schematic on
I,
there.
I would imagine it's probably the
It's a 25-foot
same
pole.
as- Yeah.
It's
well,
25 feet.
I would assume the light poles are 25 feet as well.
No, the light poles are taller, and the one by truck stop, 2 of them are taller and 2 of them are average size. The one by truck stop is somewhat taller because the base starts kind of partway down in the ditch.
Okay.
So each of them are independent, they're not all universal. They're the same type and style, but they're different heights.
Okay, it's hard to read, but it looks like it says the other light poles are about 40 feet tall.
There's the one on 9.5 looks like it's 30. The one down by Snap Fitness is 40, the one by the truck stop is 40, and the one by the Good Samaritan Church is 30. So we have 2 30s and 2 40s, and then the one without the light is 25.
Any other comments, questions? We have a motion then?
I'll make the motion,
And which motion would that be?
that we go with it.
To approve the supplemental lease. We have a
Yes.
motion to approve the supplemental lease agreement. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and second. Any other comments or discussion?
Is there a use, is there a possible desire for light to be put on that? I suppose we'd have to run power to that location.
Well, power will run to that location anyway because they'll need it.
I suppose they'll have to have.
So the question is whether we want to run power for the light.
Yeah. Are there, what is the lights?
We don't have a light there because there are other lights nearby.
That
It
cover
would be
adequate?
redundant, yeah.
Yeah, Walmart has a ton of lights.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, you're right. Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, unless somebody come up with a use for that pole, I think this is it, so.
Purple Martin House.
That'll work. Call the question then. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Approve the transfer of non-primary entitlement funds from the airport for the
In
airport.
2014, the city authorized the city of Owatonna to utilize $62,000 of our allotted FAA dollars for airport improvements, which were to be repaid in fiscal 17, which is still going on. Currently, the city does not have a need for the return of the dollars because they are expiring dollars because you have to be spent within so many years of those, and so we don't have a project right now that we can use them for. So the airport board is recommending that the city authorize an agreement transferring those dollars for use by the Hutchinson Airport for repayment back to the city in 2021, at which time we may have a future project. So really what's happening is money that's owed us is going to get transferred to Hutchinson, relieves Owatonna of having to pay it back, transfers that obligation to Hutchinson, and extends the date out to 2021. So that's what we're looking tonight for, is to approve the execution of the repayment agreement with Hutchinson for the federal FAA entitlement dollars.
Questions or comments?
No, it's just it's a good system. You're not penalized for not using it. It's not like you're going to get less the next year.
No, it's
So-
not. What would happen is if we let them give it back to us, it would expire and go away. This kind of
Yep.
lets us have it, preserve its use.
So, we did that with what other town about 5 years ago?
Well, we actually, about 10 years ago, we got money from the city of Morris, and then we've given money to Owatonna, Holly, and one other one, so.
It's a nice way to pass things around. And we don't have anything planned for 2021, but if the money becomes back to us and we don't have a use, well, we'll probably loan it to somebody else who does
We
need
can
it.
either loan it to somebody else, or, yeah, exactly
Yep.
right.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the execution of the repayment agreement with Hutchinson?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Heidi. Call the question then. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Approve the resignation of an EMT.
Blaine Kostreba has submitted her resignation from the ambulance crew effective May 15th. She has been with the crew since May of 2013, so she has been with the crew for 5 years. And so we're looking to accept the resignation of Blaine from the ambulance crew.
Well, we certainly thank her for her years of service. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept her resignation.
We have a motion to accept the resignation. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other comments, other than a nice thank you? Yep.
Absolutely.
Call the question, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Approve the appointment of probationary EMTs.
Kathy Strufert has submitted for appointment as probationary EMTs 2 individuals that are currently certified. Neil Rohde has moved to the community. He has 13 years of experience serving as a firefighter and an EMT. And Gina Eggert, who is from Melrose and has served with the city of Melrose for 5 years and now has been taking training and working with our crew. So we are looking to appoint both of those to the Sauk Center ambulance crew. Upon completion of probationary requirements, they'll be eligible for appointment as regular EMTs with the department. So what we're looking for tonight is the appointment of Neil Rohde and Gina Eggert as probationary EMTs effective immediately.
Questions, comments?
I'll make a motion that we accept it.
All right. You looked very tentative about something. I wasn't
No.
sure. All right. Well, we have a motion to accept. We have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other comments or discussion? Yeah, I got one. What will your crew be up to then?
We have 22 right now, so that would bring us up to 24, but we have one on military leave that's being deployed for at least a year, and then one still on medical leave that we don't know if they will be coming back.
Okay, so 22 active at the time.
22 at this time.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor then. We'll call the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 7L, approving a contract for private development with Felling Trailers.
The contract for private development with Felling Trailers for taxing rent financing for the construction of the corporate office building has been prepared and reviewed and is ready for execution. The public hearing was part of the hearing when we created the TIF district back in April. What the funding returns to the owner, the increased property taxes generated as part of the project, except for the state and the school referendum part. Those are not eligible to be captured. The EDA is recommending that the City Council authorize execution of the contract. Just have a couple bullet points. It's for a maximum of 9 years. There's a principal maximum of $361,750, and then there's interest of $105,583. They have a job creation of 30 new jobs, and the value of new construction for tax purposes is $2.3 million. And so what we're looking tonight is approve the execution of that contract. It's in front of you in the form of Resolution 2018-47. This has been through the legal review, both at Northland Securities and also our own city attorney, Tom Mayer.
Questions or comments? I have one question, and the estimated tax that the city is, well, the estimated tax involved is about $40,000 a year then, about 1/9 of,
It comes about 51,000 actually, when you take
Okay.
add principal and interest. So it's about
Okay.
51,000, and then the city would keep their 10%.
okay,
As far as the increment would be about 51, and we would keep 10%, and the balance would go to them, applied to principal and interest, and when they hit this maximum, or 9 years, whichever it is, it ends.
okay. Motion to approve the execution of the contract?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other questions or discussion? Call the question, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. 8A, we have
That
a
would be Keith.
CIP project update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It should be brief. Just a little update on the 2018 project. We have a pre-construction meeting scheduled for 10 a.m. this Friday, and construction is actually scheduled to start on Monday with some preliminary erosion control measures and those kinds of things, and kind of work its way up. I don't know if we'll get a lot of real physical digging and that kind of thing next week, but maybe towards the end of next week at best. but then probably right after Memorial Weekend, things should start really in earnest up there. So that's kind of the schedule at this point. I'm trying to get this right with the agreement with the golf course property, and it looks like everything's in place. We just are waiting for the signature to actually sign it. Tell me if I'm wrong on that, but he's out of country in China at the moment, so hopefully that will take place shortly, but everything is ready to be signed.
Okay, so it's ready to be signed, but at this point, nothing is
At
signed.
this point, it's not signed. Attorneys have agreed.
Yep.
So all the legal
If
work
only
is
they
done.
could sign it, yes.
Yeah, we just have to actually have the signature on the line.
All right, so do we have an expected signature date, or is it all up in the air?
I'm not sure if we know.
Yes, by Friday, we're trying to get it, just by Friday.
Okay.
Good.
Just out of curiosity, the digging is expected to start on which portion of it? Main Street North, or?
They're actually going to start, they may have changed. I mean, we'll know this for sure on Friday. Last time I talked to him last week, he was talking about, he wanted to get started in that Main Street area, because that's kind of
Okay.
where the sewer has to kind of start from
Right.
there. But I'm not sure if they're going to start there right away, because they have to set up all the
Right,
traffic
they
control.
might
and all
change
those
their
things.
mind, but-
So that may not happen, but we'll know Friday when we really talk to them, because
Okay,
with contractors, things change rapidly, so we'll see what their schedule is.
all right.
Okay, any other questions?
You know,
Okay.
Friday, there will be.
Friday,
Friday
after
there will
Friday,
be?
there probably will be. There will be notices being sent out to residents, that's all being taken care of right now. They hopefully will go out sometime in the next couple of days here.
Okay.
And that's really, the first one's just kind of an introductory reminder about safety, especially for children, and introduces our inspector, phone numbers, that kind of thing, kind of on it, so, okay?
Thank
Okay,
you.
so notices will go out, but it's probably about 2 weeks before we'll expect to see
Before we
any
get a
holes in the
lot
ground.
of real, yeah, they might be milling up the road perhaps, but that's just kind of a mill up and lays
Yeah.
right back down, so it's not a real obtrusive type of thing, so, so there won't be a lot. Next week's kind of preparatory, if you will,
Okay,
okay?
thank you. 9A, new business, hazardous building declaration.
Hey, as part of our ongoing property maintenance program, we have identified houses within the city that appear to be beyond repair, and they are vacant, and we're recommending the city council consider proceeding under the Hazardous Building Act to have them demolished. If the city council agrees that it should take this course of action, documentation will be provided to the city attorney for initiation, and then there'll be further action by you. Part of the process will include inspections, at which time a final determination will be made whether it meets the definition of a hazardous building. The two houses are located at 825 Pine Street South and 805 Railroad Avenue. On that, there's several houses on that 805, and it's this small green one that you have the picture of in your packet. So we're not trying to tear down their main house. And so if you look at those two buildings and you feel that they appear to you that they may be beyond repair, we can send this over to the city attorney for initiation, at which time there'll be inspections that'll have to be done. And all I really need at this point is just kind of general consent that, yeah, let's go down this road, or you don't want to touch it, then we won't touch it. It's up to you.
Well, we've been down this road before, haven't we?
Just keep going.
Yes,
Consent of the council,
absolutely.
yes?
Go
Yeah,
with it,
okay.
absolutely.
Proceed.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. You have a consent agenda before you, schedule of claims, unpaid claims of $125,121.65 for a total of the same amount. Paid claims and payroll of $316,911.03. We also have Resolution 2018-46, accepting contributions from the Men's Playing Group of $244 for the Senior Center. We thank them for their support. And as it is approaching the end of June and all the liquor licenses are up, we have a list before us of all of the places. Do they need to be read into the record, or is
No,
it
they don't.
sufficient that they're written down here? You have that list then. You also have a list of cigarette licenses that are also up for renewal and are listed before you. We have G, a request from the Downtown Bars, Mustang Next Door, American Pub and Eatery, and the Corner Bar for a temporary extensions of premise permit and a road closure for the street dance on July 21st. Road closure request is the one-block area, Main Street to Oak Street. And as in the past, I think, this is probably the same sort of deal. Close the road at 3 p.m. for setup, reopen at 2 a.m. following the cleanup. Fenced area will be, what does it say, from the east side of the Shaney's Tavern, currently unoccupied, I think, and the across to Main Street Drug at the intersection of Oak Street, as you see before you. Street dance road closure permit will be sent in if the council approves. The music is normally attached to this. That is per our ordinance
Yeah.
till, what, is it midnight, 11:30? I don't recall now.
12:30.
12:30.
12:30. Music till 12:30, all right. Item H, a request from Eric Hellerman doing business as the Next Door Bar and Lounge for a temporary extension of premise permits for a spring party with music on June 2nd, 2018 in the back parking lots. Next door, the food shelf and the antique store from 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. And he has filed the approvals of those other properties with you for extending into those areas. Another request from Eric Hellerman, Next Door Bar and Lounge again, for a 9th anniversary party with music on July 28th in the same back parking lots from 6 until 3 a.m. And again, I assume we have the same agreement for the other property owners. And an assembly permit request from Father Greg Paffel and Deborah Holt for a Corpus Christi procession to be held on June 3rd, 2018 at Our Lady of Angels. Expecting about 200 people to attend, and the procession will be from the Our Lady of Angels Church down Ash Street to St. Paul's Church and back down Birch Street. That is the extent of the consent agenda. Any questions or comments, or a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion made and seconded. I assume that's to approve the agenda as
Correct.
presented. Call the
So-
question then. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. I see no informational items for us on here. Then we can move on. I will entertain a motion for an adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
I'll make a second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions, meeting adjourned.